Yeah, so let's talk a little bit about that. I mean, based off of the challenge that Rhett's going for, and we are loading up into the next game right now. You know, based on that challenge, and as we get started, you know, what did you see? What we talked a little bit, especially when we were doing a Sheth, and he was focusing on specifically. You know, that ZVP matchup. Was there anything there, timing-wise, even, Sean, that you'd like to see Rhett do maybe a little faster or have a little bit more attention to this detail?
You know, I think the one thing that Yost needs to do is just be sure he's spreading creep a little bit more, and he should be trying to control that top and bottom base. It's all about controlling 5th and 6th expansions with Broodlords, because as we saw in these games, the big problem is that if you make the wrong decision once with that Broodlord Infestor army, it's guaranteed to completely die, and then you have to rebuild all from the ground up, and you have to build the Corruptors and wait for them to finish, and then build them into Broodlords and wait for that to finish, and then move it into position, which takes a long time. It is so critical to keep that Broodlord force alive all game long.
Now, the other thing that was kind of interesting is that I feel like NaNiwa, with his Vortexes, he had some High Templars out. If he would have gone with the Archons and tried to toilet them, he might have just been able to push and win at that point. But he kind of went with a different style, which was like, I'm going to storm the units as they come out here and feed back the Infestors, which I think was a really not only great concept, but just something that you can, you know, consider as an alternate to the Archon toilet.
Yeah, you know, I really like the way that he was doing those vortexes. It's a non-committal vortex. With the Archon toilet, you do the vortex and you throw all your Archons in. It is cross only. This is not the gold version of Antigua Shipyard. This is the tournament version that only allows for cross map. But yeah, if you think about the Archon toilet, when you hurl all those Archons in, you're essentially saying, I'm going to win this battle, I have to throw it in there. What if you're wrong with the Archons? They pop up, they're as far into the Zerg base as humanly possible, and they die immediately. However, if you just vortex with the intention of storming and feedbacking, you can still stay fairly far away from the rest of the Zerg army.
Right. That's a good point, and I just like to see Protoss kind of exploring the different things. I mean, going with the Archon toilet is kind of like one of those easy ways to go about it, but obviously some thought put in here into exactly what NaNiwa wanted to do. Now, meanwhile, we're going to see pretty standard openings from both of these guys as we see NaNiwa already throwing down that pylon there at the natural of Rhett to try to get that stop. And he is going to be successful in doing so. The pool is already up behind the second geyser as well, and NaNiwa is going to be throwing down that forge, not going to be put in any sort of position where Rhett can capitalize on his fast expansion. And here we're going to have a race over to the third base, and that probe is going to win so badly. There he goes.
The race of death between these two. I don't know who's going to win, but Jason Statham is certainly going to kill a bunch of people. And it looks like Liquid Red does manage to get blocked, said Sean in the most passive voice possible. NaNiwa now just getting that forge up first. Not as far away positions as there were on Antigua Shipyard, but I think that this map is actually quite strong for Zerg with that Broodlord Infestor style, because where is the safest place for Protoss to take a fourth? This expansion right here. I'm going to want to park all my units around here to cover my 3 bases on the back side, down on the bottom left. And if this is the obvious fourth base, all Zerg has to do is creep and spine the top, plant the Broodlords, and where can Protoss really safely take another base? I think that you're going to have to do 3-base harassment with a lot of Warp Prisms to break that down.
Yeah, I mean, the other kind of thing that we've been seeing from some Protoss is kind of exploring, like, just throwing down a Nexus in an odd position that maybe won't be found, but, you know, any good Zerg is going to use those Zerglings to really scout around and try to keep a watchful eye over everything that is going on. The Overlord now going to get behind as we see the third base thrown down, and he's going to get behind the position there so that he can eventually float in, check out the tech later on. But this is what, you know, he wants. He wants to get those 3 bases down. Rhett's wants to drone up, and he wants to get ready, get that pop up, and just get as far ahead as he possibly can.
So yeah, I really like this ultra drone heavy opening that a lot of Zergs are doing in around 6 minutes, planting down the double geyser. That way you can get the roaches up if you need. Zergling speed you won't actually get very quickly, so it's important that Rhett scouts those outskirts, as you were saying. We see one Zergling already making sure that no proxy pylon plops down. Rhett also trying to scoot around. He knows that it's impossible for a cybernetics core to really be finished before 6 minutes-ish. So this gives Rhett plenty of time to get his overlords in position, knowing full well that he is safe.
Yep, no stalkers, no sentries going to be coming out there at all. And let's see, is we're just, I mean, this is kind of that moment where we're going to start to see not only what tech we're going to have coming out from NaNiwa, but also just where exactly Rhett is going to go. We see a pylon put at the forward end of the base. Not sure if he's going to go with some sort of a, and yeah, it is surprising to believe that he started with the Stargate, and there it is. We're going to have a second one coming out here, right in between that Nexus and that pylon, and possibly just get ready for an assault on the third.
Looks like, yeah, he's going to try to put on a little bit of pressure there, but given the fact that I've been watching some of NaNiwa's games on his stream, we've been seeing him do some really weird Phoenix-only openings, basically saying, you know what, the Void Ray almost never really does that much damage, so I'm going to go ahead and get the Phoenixes and instead focus on just lifting Queens, picking them off before too many spores are up, killing off Overlords all around the map, trying to be a nice, nimble air army. Also, as I glance around, I see that NaNiwa is only just now taking his extra assimilators, so wouldn't be surprised to see him just go for a very tech-focused play.
Now, with very few units out, this Stalker and Zealot harassment is actually going to be quite good, forcing these drones off. He's only going to pick off a couple here, I think, in the grand scheme of things. He's going to move back in. Doesn't really note that Queen up there. Okay, now they spring to action and go, Queen, I want to take you out. The 12 Zerglings that were being produced are now on their way. Now chasing down that Stalker. Here comes a nice sandwich, but misses the Stalker surround.
Ooh, wow.
And that Queen still running for her dear life as the Zealot does fall. Even the Probe's like, man, you're not getting away. But Probe falls as well. The only thing that stays alive is that Stalker. And even a Zealot that tried to join in on the farm will go out as well. The pylon's discovered, easily taken out. And, of course, before Warp Gate finishes, but just by seconds.
Yeah, but interestingly, NaNiwa has no extra Warp Gates. He's actually just doing that to try to throw off Rhett. And we saw that throw off, indeed. Look at that, 24 Zerglings. That could have been 12 extra drones.
Yeah.
All what aggression is about. You throw down the pylon because literally your opponent can't know if you're going all in or not, so he has to go. He has to desperately go for that extra set of Zerglings. But of course, Rhett is doubly smart. He's saying, okay, if I'm making the Zerglings, you're either going to attack me, and I can defend it, or you are faking me out, in which case I'm going to go try to kill off your assimilators, which is critical for Protoss on two bases.
And now he does have speed. It is finished up during that little skirmish there, and he's got some Lings just sitting right outside. So far, this air army has not been revealed yet, and we're going to have a few more Phoenixes come out with, in addition to the Void Ray, as these gateways also complete and get up. Of course, Rhett at this moment knows it'd be a good time for some air units to come in. He's got at least one Spore at every base. Is that accurate? No, only at the third. And the main. So he is just doing the minimum to make sure that he's going to stay alive in all this. But 4 Phoenix and 1 Void Ray heading out.
Swift Infestation Pit again, +1 Carapace. We're seeing the similar patterns that Rhett performed in the previous game. The only difference, no 4th hatchery quite yet. Rhett wants to try to make certain that he can actually get up enough units. Remember, he made those 20 Zerglings in response to the proxy pylon here, so that automatically made him a little bit more economically wounded, and there he is trying to pick off as many of those units as he can, having to cancel that lift so he can get at a better angle, but there the Queen count is going to start plummeting.
Yeah, and oh no, these Overlords just kind of sitting out. He lets one of these Phoenixes die. Another Queen may fall, but no, the Void Ray actually getting double hit by those spores. They're going to go back in, just target down these drones. Meanwhile, we saw +1 just complete for NaNiwa. He's starting to build up that gateway armor, but more importantly, that third is starting to go down. Although not as fast as the last game, certainly a comfortable position for NaNiwa to not only continue this attack, but then also throw down that third and secure it.
Yeah, and it looks like he's relying on a largely sentry army. Has a couple of Zealots down right now as well, and he's getting that third up very, very nicely while still just putting on a bunch of pressure. In this unit's loss tab, we see
Lings coming in.
For both. Oh, no, there's the Lings. Is he going to spot it in time? It looks like the Zealots at the front doing some nice damage. Rhett tries to squeeze in, do some damage to those sentries, and it looks like NaNiwa never once force fielded, still ended up staying alive, and in the main, it looks like a target fire on the Evo chamber that just recently finished an upgrade. So a little bit of fortunate moment there for Rhett, but man, this delay air attack from NaNiwa is looking pretty potent, but once those 10 infestors pop out, I think it's going to be the danger zone.
Yeah, he's just waiting for him to hit. And it's too bad they weren't just a couple of milliseconds sooner, because now this Air Force is saying, my job is done and I'm going to move back. We do see this fourth once again from Rhett at the X gold base, and he does have control of the tower, but this ground force is starting to swell here for NaNiwa, and he's got his established third. So there's inevitably going to be a good attack coming on here soon, as we have more gateways being thrown down there and nothing else being produced out of the Stargate at this time.
Does look like now NaNiwa also trying to spread out those forces at the front. Needs to be able to get some incredible force fields down if he wants to do that damage. And Rhett, not going to have any of that. If you took a fast third, you can't have any sort of detection. And there he does the huge flood of infested Terrans. That is going to be really bad news. He has to force field to deal with all the Zerglings, and the infested Terrans pop up and rip apart that back line of defenses. And Rhett is comfortably stepping up to Hive Tech with this very nice timing push.
Yeah, managed to get some Zerglings into the back here. If he can get rid of some of these reinforcements, the cannons go down, but the infested Terrans are about to expire. However, more Lings heading on in here, though. Stalker count very limited. No Zealots out on the field at all. Charges being researched now with +2 on the way as well, but these is a very healthy amount of Zerglings. There's the Zealot warp in to try to defend this area. More infested Terrans coming out, and I mean, the Void Ray is almost being ignored at this point. He could focus it down with the infested Terrans as he tries to do so right now, but it will live 42 points of health. It looks like everything will be cleaned up here at the NaNiwa's third.
And meanwhile, Rhett brilliantly gets his natural up. His fourth base up. That's pretty far away from the natural. We see that the Hive is now done. There's the Spire coming up. And look at NaNiwa. NaNiwa's doing a very different late game. The more hyper-modern Zealot Archon style. He's getting another Robo facility up. We have a lot of gateways up in the main. There's the Templar Archives. You can support 11 or 12 gateways quite easily when you go for this style with the Zealot Archon. So NaNiwa is not incorrect to build this many gateways. And against this mixer that Rhett is throwing, this Infestor Ling, he's going to have a lot of trouble. But what Rhett needs to do is go Infestor Spine Crawler. Too many Lings can really be the bane in a style like this.
Yeah, especially as you mentioned in the very early portions of this game, is if you can creep up this middle and then you can reinforce it. We already see some Spores are moving into position. Now the Spine Crawlers are going to go down as well. This is absolute. Oh, he's going to go ahead. He wants to get rid of that Void Ray, and he finally gets it. Those Infestors just popping to attention and getting the job done. Also, we're seeing these rocks being taken out so that Rhett can take this far east, fifth base?
Yeah, love it. Great job by Rhett. Really, the key to this build, the Infestor Broodlord mix, is to answer the question, what do I do with my minerals? Rhett is spending it largely on Zerglings, but I always worry about what do the Zerglings do once we get enough units onto the map. I mean, a Storm rips apart hundreds of them.
Right.
Force Field and Colossus rips up hundreds of them. It doesn't really work so well unless, oh yes, Rhett, oh yeah, oh, Nidus Network.
There we go.
That is a great way to extend the use of these Zerglings. I love that.
Now the big question is where is this Nidus Network going to come from? We see an Overlord spotted at the top of his base. We also see an Overlord between the second and the third as well, which could, I mean, there's some very nice positioning over there. I mean, there's a lot of options here for Rhett. And I'm curious to see exactly what his plan's going to be. But here we have that Zealot force moving out. Charge is done. +3 is on its way. And how will he deal? Oh, before the Zealots can even do anything, we had a huge fungal here, and he chain fungals to get this going. Meanwhile, we've got a Warp Prism drop harass in the main that is yet to be seen. And here it is. Surprise, Zealots in your base.
And it looks like Rhett did manage to save his fifth base. The main under a lot of pressure. He just target fires that Hive. There's the Nidus in the back of the main. It doesn't look like there's that much in it, but wow, Rhett's churning a bunch of units out now. It looks like that Hive is under some serious damage. He needs to transfuse. Where's the transfuse? There's one. Can he get a second? No, he loses the Hive Tech, but in the main base, looks like it's going to be some trouble, but Rhett is running into some Zealots right off the bat, and no, it looks like NaNiwa manages to take it down, building a fleet beacon to block in these Zerglings. I mean, Zealots are so good against that Zergling mix. It's time to start flooding Spine Crawlers.
Yeah, some very, very interesting play here by all of these guys. I mean, the good thing about the Hive going down is that the Greater Spire was finished up. And that means, of course, that all of these guys can be produced right here as well. We have 11 Broodlords coming into play here. The Zergling count has certainly subsided quite a bit. We've got another base in the far north corner, and he's really starting to reinforce all the bases that he's got to make sure. Now, is he going to continue any use with the Nidus network? Or, watch out. Oh, feedbacks 1, 2, 3, 4 infestors go down at the cost of just a little bit of energy from those High Templar.
I think Rhett should be a little bit reluctant to push right now. There's no need to try to put any pressure onto the other player. I mean, what would... he really should just try to contain on this fourth. We see some probes from NaNiwa starting to move their way to the south side to do a little long-range mining. Another Warp Prism moves out, but Rhett is in a very nice position, but still, NaNiwa could easily just pick off this army, and what would Rhett do to step back in?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of like the fact that Rhett is at least pushing him back into his natural. He basically creates a choke for this army. Meanwhile, Zergling's counterattacking the third. He gets some fungals down on all the units there at the natural, and the Broodlords from the back doing their best. A couple of feedbacks do come out, but this army is slowly beginning to melt away from NaNiwa.
Oh, it looks like Rhett with a good position. There's the good game and the multi-happy face. Rhett manages to be in kind of a precarious spot, manages to get a good attack at that last drive, and manages to secure that win. Helped largely in part by the fact that NaNiwa didn't have Blink at that point in time. It finished right at the cusp of that attack finishing.
Now, you said that when he was pushing forward from the middle, which was, it was like one of those situations where it could have been a really bad situation if he would have lost the middle and then lost that forward base. That could have been a problem. But he handled it nicely. I mean, I think that's what he wanted. He wanted NaNiwa's army to just move back a little bit. The Fungals just came at a very opportune time to trap all those units there while he then attacked the third. So I thought that was a very impressive game.
Yeah, I mean, the attack went really nicely. I mean, you heard me say, ooh, I'm really concerned about this attack. And then what happened? Rhett waltzed in and won pretty easily. I want to talk about that moment a little bit, though. You don't know exactly what your opponent has, so it can end up working, but it can also end up with you running your army forward and dying, which is what we saw happen to Rhett when he was playing against NaNiwa in the first game.
Right.
Moved forward with that huge army, blink in, killed off a whole bunch, and pull back. The one thing you're guaranteed to know, though, is whether or not your opponent has a fourth base. It results in much longer games, but players like Stefano are getting to the point where they just park, sit, wait, and there you go. Protoss has to come to them, and as long as you can defend well enough, you can win. I guess the only problem with the argument I just made is that if Rhett got a good scout at the front and saw it and said, oh yeah, I can kill that, that's really the only case. And Rhett is one player I'd always trust to be able to make that sort of decision, and made the right one there.
So we split games 1-1. What's up next? So is NaNiwa going to play another game, or are we switching over to Sasa?
Well, we may end up switching over to Parting, given the fact that both those games went on so long. We're going to go ahead and see where the practice partners are at no matter what ends up happening. We'll be going on to 2 more games of Liquid Rhett's Challenge. I'm Day 9.
And I'm DJ Wheat. Don't go away when we return. Rhett's Challenge continues here at Red Bull LAN Orlando, Day 2.